Good evening. Good evening once again. Yeah, this is day 7 out of 8. Before I go into the session for today, allow me to get something out of the way. The session yesterday was indeed very triggering, the meaning of the word. I've received a lot of phone calls and a lot of messages in my various social media handles, and there are a lot of people who can relate with that topic. Maybe at another day, we can talk more about how to heal from the scars of childhood sexual abuse. Perhaps if this can encourage somebody, because there are people who are like, I can't move, I'm finding it very difficult to move past the wounds of sexual abuse. I have said this before in other national TV and other stations. I was sexually abused as a child by family members, and I have forgiven the family members. And I've been able to move past the wounds of that sexual abuse. So I'm just saying this to encourage somebody who feels like it's not possible. I just want to say that it's possible. There are a few questions that were shared that I didn't respond to. I'll respond at the end, after the end of our presentation. Then I also must confess, I gave the elder a different verse. It was Luke. Nevertheless, it's still okay. All scripture is inspired by the word of God. So it was the book of Luke, chapter 15, verse 11, and it says, I will actually read. Let me read Luke chapter 15. Let me read from verse 11 all the way to verse 16, but you can read the entire chapter at your own time. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days later, the younger son gathered everything together, and he took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent everything, there arose a great famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, and no man gave him unto him. Many times people say that he ate with the pigs. He didn't. He was not given even to eat with the pigs. That is what the Bible says in verse 16. Let me share a few reflections from that scripture, and then I can specifically talk about in the modern day society, the contemporary world, in our diverse families, how do we deal with our prodigal sons and daughters? Because I see that the father to this son was a godly man, and he modeled the character of Christ even as he dealt with his son. This was a younger brother. He bypassed the older brother to ask his father for inheritance. During those times, in that culture, the older brother got double a portion of the father's inheritance. And you can see, because the older brother, eldest, is like a deputy father, even currently in our families. The eldest, they're like the deputy fathers. So this younger brother, he had the audacity to bypass the elder brother and even go to ask his father for his inheritance. This was offensive and rude. In Hebrews chapter 9, verse 17, it says that the will goes into effect only after the death of a person who wrote it. So technically speaking, this son was like wishing the father death when he's asking him to give him his inheritance, because he was to get it after the father died. There are some children who are actually killing, or they have killed their parents because of the wrong choices that they have made. As parents, we wish the best for our children. You see that even those who are parenting in this contemporary world, they even take photos of kindergarten certificates to put on Facebook. Kindergarten certificate, where a child just goes to sleep and eat and play. And the parent is posting saying, I must have done something right. My little Einstein has graduated. Graduated from where? What else were they going to do? Nobody was going to stay in kindergarten forever. And anyway, the teachers have to give you that so that you continue paying school fees. So people take that picture and they're posting. They're even streaming live a child graduating in kindergarten. I know we want to count all the trophies that our children are giving us. Everybody wants to raise a successful child, isn't it? Nobody wants to raise a loser. And that's why I've not met a parent who thinks that their child is not a genius. Have you wondered where are they called prodigies or prodigies? Those children who are young and who appear very intelligent. Have you ever wondered where they disappear to? By the time they are adults, they disappear. Because every parent actually thinks that their child is a genius. And they will keep telling you, I just don't know where this child got these genes from. You should just see my child. That is what we all think. So you can imagine in this case, this young man is coming to ask the father for the inheritance, a child that he has raised. And the father acted in a Christ-like manner. Even if he knew that the inheritance that was going to be obtained too early is not a blessing to anybody. We can find that from the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 21. It actually says, an inheritance obtained too early in life is not a blessing in the end. The father knew all this, and yet the son had bypassed. He had come to ask. He decided to give him, and he gave him. The son went. You know how the story went. Eventually, the son came back home, and when he comes back home, the father welcomes him. There are many of us who have wandered. There are many young people who have wandered away. They may not have wandered away from home physically, but they are home and they have forsaken the family values. Some of us come to church, our children we don't know where they are. I'm saying this as one who is experiencing the same. You don't know where the child is, they decide. In fact, my son told me recently, I appreciated the fact that he told me that. He said, I appreciate you for raising us in the Adventist church. I'm not going to say which one. I have 3. So he said, I appreciate the fact that you've raised us in the Adventist church, but I'm in that season of my life where I'm trying to determine whether this is the faith that I want to keep. I said, okay. He said, yeah, you did your best. You have raised us. I'm not sure that I want to be an Adventist. So I said, okay, like I didn't see that coming. I said, so what does that mean? He said, I'm figuring out my life because I'm an adult now. I said, okay, that's good. Is there anything you think I should have done differently? He said, no, you did the best with what you knew. So just allow me to figure out whether I still want to hold on to your faith because it is your faith. I'm not sure whether it's my faith. I said, okay, that's good. So he went ahead, he told me, were it not that you rebelled from your mother, you would not be an Adventist today, which is true. Because me becoming an Adventist was as a result of my rebellion from what I was raised in. So he said, you rebelled, that's why you're an Adventist, you've raised us as Adventist. Your mom she's not an Adventist, so I'm also choosing what I want to follow. So I said, that's fine, I'll be praying for you. And yeah, that was it. So sometimes those moments come. I'm glad. I told him, son, I thank you so much because you've been able to share this with me. And I raised you in the best way that I knew. He said, no debate, you did your best. But let me also figure out, and then I will see. I said, I'll be praying for you. In case you need to talk, I'm here. So there are some who don't talk, but they act. And as parents who are Christ-like, we can only do our best because we have no control. Otherwise, we can have children come here, the bodies are in church, but the spirit is elsewhere. When I had a session with the teens in my church, I talked to them. It was a home Sabbath, and I asked them, how many of you are in the Adventist church because you want to be here? They were like 20, only one raised their hand. The rest said, we are just here for the sake of peace. Because if we didn't come to church, there will be no peace in that house. I said, why are you an Adventist? Why do you believe in the Adventist faith? They said, we don't. We are just here because this is our parents brought us here. I said, that's okay. I wish you can go a step further to now find out whether, this is what you embrace. And these were our children. They were children of elders, of pastors. They are our children. So they are not children of people out there. I was so glad because they felt safe to just tell me. They said, we don't know. We are just here. And it was sad for me that my child can come to church for the sake of peace. Like they just know if they don't come, there is going to be war. And I don't know whether as parents, that's really the best way to go about it. Because the moment the child goes away from home. Of course, I'm not talking about an under 18. I'm talking about an adult. By the time they go away from home, the thing they look for closest is to disappear as far as possible. And they don't want to hear about your religion and your faith. Anyway, so this young man, he disappeared from home. The Bible says in the book of Proverbs, chapter 27, verse 8, A person who strays from home is like a bird that strays from its nest. A person who strays from home is like a bird that strays from its nest. We may be talking about children straying, but I also want to say that even us as adults, there are times that we have strayed away. I know some of you have not. You have been in the church throughout, you have not strayed. I personally know that I have strayed. I have been the prodigal son. And if I can share, for me, what brought me back is because nobody put pressure on me whatsoever. I usually tell people that if I decided today that I'm not going to be an Adventist and I'm going to leave church, I will not explain to anybody because no one in my family brought me to church. I came to church. Of course, I'm not leaving. This is home. But I just say I don't have any pressure whatsoever that I'm going to remain in church because of anybody. I can walk away and there is no explanation. And I think every individual needs to have that freedom, that you can choose to walk away, because that is one of the greatest gifts I can say that the Lord gave us. That he doesn't force anybody. You get to choose what you want to do, but ultimately I must say that their choices have consequences. There's an age that comes when as a young person, you actually think that you know more than your parents. I know that because there are things I just never thought that I can consult my mother over, because really, what does she know? So there's an age where you think that you know much more, but then it's important for us to bear in mind that the values that we are raised by, the Bible says, do not move ancient boundaries. You know, there are boundaries that were put to surround you, to protect you, to keep you safe as a young person. And you're safe to remain within those boundaries because you leave home in terms of your values. You're like a bird that is strayed. So he wasted all his money in riotous living. Some of us are wasting not just our money, but we are wasting even our talents, our gifts that the Lord has given us. God gives us opportunities, but we waste them away. And the Lord is calling us today, that urging us, we cannot continue in sin, that grace may abound. As the book of Romans chapter 6 verse 1 says, we need to come back home, come back to the Lord, come back to the values. So the young man goes, he spends his money with prostitutes. The Bible says again in Proverbs 29 verse 3, it talks about prostitutes, people wasting their wealth, squandering their wealth with prostitutes. And the Bible says they will end in misery. Whoever spends his money with prostitutes, they will end in misery. And you know, sometimes when we talk about prostitute, I think the terminology prostitute refers to females. But we have a lot of male prostitutes now. We have a lot of young men who think that it's easier not to get tired, to just sit down and work their biceps so that they can get women who are older to fund their living. It is quite disappointing and disgusting, I think. I know as a parent, if your young man is preying on older women and prostituting himself. So when the young man came home, the father gave him a ring to signify love, commitment, and authority. He also gave him sandals. He asked his servants to get him sandals. Sandals were only given to sons and daughters. The young man came asking his father that he wants to be as one of his hired servants because the father's servants were living better than he was living. But the father says, no, you cannot be like a hired servant. He gives him sandals to signify that, no, you come back as my son, despite the fact that he had squandered the father's wealth with prostitutes. Then the father slaughtered a fatted calf to signify the richness, and he gave the best despite what the son has done. Do we love her done? Do we love our children unconditionally so that when they go and they come back, we still give them the best? This father, as I said, was Christ-like. We don't see him going to look for the son. He stayed home, he waited for him, ready to receive him. And when the son went, as much as he wandered very far, he remembered the love of his father and he came back. So the question tonight, as a parent, how do you deal with your child who has chosen riotous living? Maybe they are drinking. I think addiction is a real issue in our families. Maybe they are in addiction. Maybe they have made wrong choices and you can see they have strayed from the values that you've raised them by. as a parent, as a family, how do you respond? I'm going to share with us ways in which, healthy ways, I can say Christ-like ways, that we can respond when we are dealing with our irresponsible children or family members or those who are addicted. Let me begin by saying that every irresponsible behavior has an enabler. Every irresponsible behavior has an enabler. There is no irresponsible behavior that exists in a vacuum. So if you have an irresponsible or addicted person in the family, I want you to begin thinking, what role have I played to enable this? Because there's an enabler. It cannot continue working. And I'm not saying this to blame, but I'm just saying so that we can point the flashlight inward so that we can understand where this is coming from. Before I talk about specifically what to do, let me say this. One of the issues that I have been dealing with among teenagers and young people is the issue of overparented children. A lot of us grew up in poverty and struggle. So what comes to your mind, you don't want your child to struggle, not knowing that struggle is good. So children are raised and they are given everything, and the parent will break their back to give the child everything. Up to the point the parent is the one who gets a school for the child. The parent wanted to go to the Alliance High School, an example. They didn't. They will kill, steal, and destroy and bribe, to ensure their child goes to, let me not say Alliance because people will start thinking, those who have their children in Alliance, I'm talking about it. Let's say the XYZ school. Do you know that there are parents in the Adventist church who give to the tune of, bribe to the tune of 250,000, $500,000 to have their children go to certain schools? Do you know there are parents who bribe in that way? Like, by all means, my child has to go to that school. And they force issues, and then the child goes to the school, then they start praying for that child to pass. What kind of dissonance is that? The child goes to that school. This is a child coming from a family where the bathrooms are more than people. It's a 7-bedroomed house. The people in the house are 3 or 4. They go to that school where they line up to go to the latrine. And the child has had their own room since they were 2 days old. They came into the world with a fully furnished room with cartoon themes and everything. Now they are going to that school. Hey, I've taken my children to one of those good schools and I have seen wonders. They go to that school and there are several in a room. They don't even have a place to keep their clothes. They keep under the bed. My son used to wash his clothes and keep them in the box, wet. So I'm telling you, we had to burn the whole box because everything was moldy. We had to burn it, buy afresh, because he had no idea. Because he would keep it, it's stolen his innerwear. Stolen. So he started hiding the socks and innerwear wet in the bag, in the box, and lock the box. Then put the box down here. When the others are climbing, they step on the box. After a few days, I'm called it crushed and moldy. Had to buy another one. It was terrible. A child at home who is being encouraged, kadadi, kula. Over there is pushed out of the line. It's struggle of the fittest. And what they are struggling for is githeri, mara mnyoyo, is rice and beans half cooked. And the child at home is being pushed to eat chicken. Please, have another piece. It is terrible. And the parent has given $500,000 to 50,000 for the child to go to the school. They have bribed. The child cannot cope. Anxiety. They start self-harming. And then the parent is like, no. What will people say if the child leaves that school? Because when the parent introduces the child, they say, this is Natasha, the one at Alliance. This is Kimberly, the one at the Kenya High. I'm just saying, that's how parents introduce themselves. And then when they have another one who is in Kebirigo High School, they don't say. They just say, and this is the brother Roy. They don't say he's in Kebirigo High School. Sorry, if you are from those schools, I'm just saying, giving us examples, please. Nothing about the schools. I mean, it's something I have seen. When the parent takes the child to report at that school, they take a picture. But Kebirigo, they will not. They just say, I was up country for some day. They won't even say that they took that child to the school. So the parent cannot imagine that my child can forfeit that space that I bought with $500,000. And what will people say? They force that child. They force the child. When the grades are dropping as a sign that the child is struggling, tutor after tutor after tutor. Sometimes parents tell me to speak to their children who are going through struggles during the holiday. Then I say, we have a whole day. You can let me know the time. They say the child has a tutor from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. during the holiday. So they say, maybe you have a session with them earlier than 7 or after 5. I say, no. The child is exhausted. It's holiday. I say, why do you have to do this? They say, no, the grades are not good. We have to push. Let me tell you, if you're very lucky, you may push, finally get that A. But that's the end of it. The child will join university if they are able to complete that course you chose for them for the sake of prestige. Because you're saying we already have an engineer, so we need a doctor, and then we need a lawyer, so that we can have all professions in the house. If they manage to complete, it is sad. Sometimes it has led to a point where children, young adults are committing suicide in those professions. You have paid fees parallel for all those years. Eventually they take their life because they didn't want to do that in the first place. So I was talking about overparenting. Choose the school for the child, choose the course, choose the institution, university. Take them there, arrange their rooms nicely, and keep on checking on them. Some family members, some people were telling me, my children are in university, and somebody was asking me, do you go and check with the faculty how they are performing? You check. I say, me? Adults? Is that university for me? It's for them. So they say, oh, you don't go and check. I said, no, I give them their school fees. I give each of them their school fees. Say, this is your school fees. Kula mandazi, lipa. Mimi, I don't know. I don't want to know. Just do what you want to do. Because if I'm controlling this person, soon they will be working. Am I going to be controlling them? So I say, you can pay, you can eat, you can go to class, you can sleep. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. But of course, it's a journey. You cannot begin doing when they are adults. So I was going somewhere. So parents overparent these children to the point of they even apply for jobs for these children. There are parents who spend nights applying for jobs for the children. And these are children who are online throughout, but they can't find a link to a job. They apply for jobs. I'm happy you're laughing. It doesn't happen here. But for me, I've seen it. Where I work, I supervise interns. And during the time when interns are coming and attaches they are coming, I receive phone calls from parents. I'm very firm and I disconnect. I say, you're calling me, an adult, for them to get attachment? Are you going to look for a job for them? Will you come and work? And I tell them, by virtue of the fact that as a parent you have called me, your child has got no chance here. They don't have a chance because this is a very bad sign that this is a child you have overprotected. You're getting for them attachment. Can't they come? Can't they walk and come and find? They don't know the place. Do you know there's an app called Google Maps? Do you know Google Maps? These are people who are posting TikTok videos every day, but they don't know Google Map. Or even when they come and I tell them, in this institution we are full, we don't have a place. You can check, there's another one here. They say, iko wapi? Where is it? Can you describe? Excuse me? You have Google Map. Walk around and see. They cannot even think. They're like wheelbarrows. You push, they are there. That is the end of the story. Let me tell you, it's very sad, very sad. No skills whatsoever. They're like wheelbarrows. Can I just say something? I normally tell young people, I wish we realized that the era of going to school and finishing and getting jobs is gone. That era is gone. We need to move with the times because this education system was designed by the colonialists to get workers. How many years after independence are we still holding on to the colonial system of going to school and getting jobs? No wonder we have people who are trained. We have doctors who cannot even correlate between somebody's diet and lifestyle to their blood pressure. That even when they give medication and the person is coming back, that the pressure is not regulated, it's not maintained, they add drugs. They cannot even ask, how do you take the drugs? Are you taking these drugs? We used to have mothers coming where I was working. They come with the child, you give them instructions, you tell them, go and boil water. When the water cools, put in the bottle, shake. Then you of course, you shake the medicine. Those days when you used to shake the syrups in powder, you give the child. The mother hears to the point of boil water, put it in the bottle. So they go boil water. When the water is hot, they put it in the bottle of medicine. That hot water degrades the medicine. So the medicine even becomes a poison. But they give it to the child. They come back after a short time. The child is worse. So if you don't ask them, how did you give the medication? So we had to change the way we communicate. We had to say, weka maji safi baridi. Maji safi can be in whichever way. So this is the thing. If you don't ask, you will say this child is getting worse, add more medicine. And a lot of people are killed. In other words, I've digressed to go far, but to say, I think the curse for me I have seen in the current generation is parent overparenting, children having no skills, children being passive, children not being self-motivated, and the parent is still there. They are still keeping on enabling that child. And I always ask, are you immortal? How many years are you going to live? Isn't it better to let your child suffer, quote unquote, so that they can learn now when you are alive, other than the child suffering when you are dead? I think we have been privileged to see in this country people who have owned almost the entire Kenya dying. And when they have died, we can now see their grandchildren, some dying because of diseases they cannot afford medication. And these are children who have been educated Ivy League universities to PhD level, but they cannot even take care of their own children. I think you have been seeing in the papers. And these are people who owned almost an entire country. Wealth that is passed to children without the children learning skills disappears by the time you get to grandchildren. Do you understand? Even if you own the entire of this country, you give to your children that wealth without them learning the skills, by you loving them like the way the father to the prodigal son loved him. By the time you get to grandchildren, you will have nothing. Last week, I saw a grandson of one of the presidents of this country. I saw him in the paper. He was being taken to court for child support. I still have that newspaper because I cannot imagine that is a child of one of the most powerful a grandchild of one of the most powerful presidents we have had. Honestly, he looked like a street kid. I'm not saying this to ridicule, but I looked and I said, my God, this boy looks like a street kid. And that is a grandchild. And these children were educated in top universities. The children, so the father to this child was educated at that level. You see, so I think I'm just saying this as an urgent appeal to us as parents to love our children in a Christ-like manner, like the way the father of the prodigal son loved him, so that our children can be saved. So let me share how to go about it when you have a child who is a prodigal. You need to set firm boundaries. And when we talk about firm boundaries, we are not talking about punishment, but we are talking about boundaries that are going to allow your child to have some autonomy, independence, to know that they end somewhere and you begin somewhere. And the boundaries are also going to give you peace of mind and security, and not to be the caretaker of this child. So what are some of the things you can do? Do not engage in arguments or discuss certain topics if your loved one is intoxicated or is acting irresponsible. If you have a loved one, a child, a member of the family, they drink, they smoke, they're addicted to something, or they are engaging in some irresponsible behavior, refuse to get into an argument when they're intoxicated. You say, we are not going to discuss this when you're in this state. Some people get drunk. That's when they come. They want to manipulate you. They want to threaten. Say, I really want to talk to you, but we cannot talk when you're in this state. When you are sober, we can talk about this. Thank you. Can even close the door and you leave them. Don't engage in arguments. The other thing that you need not to do is do not buy alcohol or substances or give money for that. Do not buy alcohol, substance, or give money. I have a lot of my cousins, my family members, cousins and uncles, who are taking drugs, alcohol, and substance. Anytime I go home, they rush to where I am. They ask me for 20 shillings. I do not give them a coin, and I will not. I normally say, if you want me to give you money, I want you to come and you work, because my mom's farm always has work to do. So you can come, you can work, I pay you for the work. They disappear. they don't come. Because they'll tell me, I don't have a job. Please, if you can give me 50 bob, I say, no problem. I'm willing to give you 50 bob. You don't have a job, that's fine. You come, you go to the shamba, you work, I'll pay you at the end of the day. They don't come. And then they say, I'm mean, I'm stingy, I'm fine with that. But now, anytime they see me, they don't come close because they know I would not give them money to destroy themselves. So do not give any money. There are women who are married to husbands. I'll talk about even men. They're married to husbands who drink. They give them money for the sake of peace. I had a family member, lady, who was married to a man who was addicted. The man was very abusive. She used to go and do casual labor, kibarua, come and give the man all the money to go and drink so that they can have peace. He drank, abused them, got HIV, died, left her with HIV. She died and left the children. The children are extremely angry and bitter. They don't know whether they can ever recover from where they were left, okay? So no, the more you do, the more they want, okay? The more you enable them, the more you give them money for that drink, that cigarette, whatever, the more they do. So meaning if you're in a marriage with somebody who is addicted, you're putting your resources together. And they are using those resources, you must separate the resources. Yeah. So you never ever give them money for that. Another thing is, know that you're not the one to blame. You're not to blame. Many times when people are in addiction or they're irresponsible, they will blame you. They will say it's a game. They will say, I did this because of that, because of what. If you didn't, I wouldn't. In fact, I remember one man who did work for me. And when he used to do work, labor, he will get the money, then go home and buy alcohol for the wife, take for her alcohol in the house, because he said, if I don't buy for her alcohol, she will go to the bar and drink with other men. So he had to buy alcohol and take for her to the house to drink. Imagine. He has worked and she's just in the house. So he works the whole day, hard labor, to buy for her alcohol so that she drinks alcohol in the house, at least so that she doesn't go to the bar and drink with other men. Can you imagine? It's total madness. You cannot do anything about it. You did not cause the addiction. You cannot control it. You cannot cure it. So please don't tell me that if I do this, things are going to get better, they are going to stop. You are absolutely helpless. There's nothing you can do. They and they alone can control that habit. Another thing I want to say is, do not feel like you are the one to solve the problem. It is not your problem. It's entirely their problem. So do not take it upon yourself to solve the problem. I have desperate family members who reach out to me, and I know they reach out to other counselors, and they want to book sessions for their children who are addicted. I say, no, you can't do that. You can give them my number. They reach out to me. They book a session for themselves. Then the parents tell me, no, I know they are not going to do it. Why? But they can go look for alcohol. They wake up, they go look for alcohol, but they cannot even send a message. Say, do you realize what you're doing? You're over-functioning and the person is under-functioning. You're making it your problem. If they really want help, they are going to reach out. But if for whatever they value, they will look for it. So do not feel that you're the one to solve the problem. Another thing is, express your concern in a loving way. That's how you love the prodigal. You express your concerns in a loving way. Let me give an example. You have a child. Let me talk about, if I say you'll think I'm telling you have a child. If I have a child, if I have a family member who is addicted, I can make it my problem and start saying, how can you do this? You are embarrassing the family after all that I've done for you. This is what you can do. It is such a shame. I'm making it my problem. But expressing it in a loving way is to say, my son, for example, my son, I love you so much. I'm really concerned about the choices you have made and the habits you are engaging in. Is that healthy for you? I feel it's not healthy for you. Would you like to get help? Would you consider getting help? If they say no, I say, that's fine. I just thought you may be interested in getting help. I do not know whether you're going to sustain that habit because it's not healthy for you to continue this way. If they say, yes, I need help, some of them say that to manipulate you when they have done something wrong. Say, okay, if you need help, I'm here to support you. You can give the contact, you can tell them here is a contact, or they can reach out And you tell them, whatever you want, I am here, I will support you. So you make it their problem, not your problem. Another thing is, do not shield them from the consequences. This is a big one. Do not shield them from the consequences with their spouse, in their work, with their friends. If, for example, because of their addictive habit, their spouse decides to leave, please do not go looking for the spouse, mothers especially, and their sons. They go begging the son's wife to return. They even do anything possible. Some even get a house for the son's wife, for example. They give a car. They pay school fees for their children. They do everything so that the wife can remain. That keeps the son in addiction for long because his consequences have been removed. You must let the bottoms fall. Let the son go to take care of pigs. And as a Jew, you can imagine how disgusting, how kogaragalia it was for a Jew to feed pigs. It was very disgusting. But it had to get to that point. It has to get to that point for the person to see that they need help. So if your son's wife or your daughter's husband comes and says, I can't take it anymore, I am leaving, let them know that I'm here to support you. Whatever choice you make, I will always support you. Because you tell them to remain, they will remain and they will blame you. And your son or your daughter will not experience the consequences. You are leaving, I'm sorry it has to get here, I'm here to support you. Whatever choice you make is yours. For me, I will always be there for you. Whatever choice you will make, okay? So do not shield them from their consequences. Do not shield them from the consequences of their work. They didn't go to work. Do not call in sick. You start saying, they could not make to work because they had a flu. You are lying. You lie on their behalf. Let them lose their job. If they have messed up the relationship with friends, do not go apologizing on their behalf. If it's in a family setup and the children are asking, why is daddy or mommy sleeping in until this time? Don't say they are sick. Do not. Let them answer. Say, would you want to talk to them as to why they have slept in late? Maybe you can talk to them. Do not lie. If things are clear, they are being seen, they need to face the consequences. Another thing is you need to detach with love. Emotionally detach. I think this is one of the most important things you can do to yourself. Detach emotionally. So that when they are doing something that is their choice, they are the ones experiencing the consequences. Will you be pained? You will be. Will you be sad? You will be. But you must resist the urge to rescue them because you want to cover, because it's a family secret, you want to cover shame. Another thing is that it's important to seek support. When you feel you need to join a support group or something, when you feel that you are alone, sometimes you can make wrong choices because you don't know any better. But if you join, there are many support groups that somebody can join, even join families of alcoholics and what have you, so that you are not codependent with your family member. Codependency is whereby you experience somebody's emotions and you do not allow them to face the consequences of their choices. Another thing is you need to practice self-care. Practice self-care. Take care of yourself. You cannot die for the sake of anybody. Christ died for all of us. No man or woman or child is worth a single day of your life. You cannot die for somebody. Christ died for us. So you need to surrender, release your family member to Christ. And I can only imagine the father of the prodigal son, how he was feeling. He must have released the son and known that it's possible the son could actually very well die. But he surrendered. The moment you surrender your loved one to God and you're open to any possibilities coming your way, that is when you might even begin seeing breakthroughs. But for as long as it's your responsibility, it's your burden, you cannot even take care of yourself, you cannot even eat. Some mothers even say, nyinyi mmekaa tu hapa mnakula na mjui ndugu yenu wako wapi. You don't know where your brother is and you are eating. You're just eating. What are we supposed to do? What is the mouth for? That you are just eating. Then you are giving them food. I can't eat. I can't eat. My child is outside there and the child is 38. My child is outside there. I cannot just eat. They are not eating. Why did Christ die for all of us if we expected you to die for somebody else? Let me share with you, as I take any questions, comments, I'll share with you 2 success stories. I'll make them brief. There's a family that had 3 sons. The eldest son was 16, the other one was maybe 14, the other one was 12. I'm just giving around those ages, it may not be specific, but the eldest was 18. He began taking substances and alcohol, but especially substances, bangi. He was addicted to bangi, so he used to bring it to their house. They realized even the younger sons had also started taking because the older son would bring. They had brought him up in the church. They had done their best, just like all of us, but he had chosen that way. So the parents realized if we take longer in this, we are losing our 3 sons. So they said it's better we act early, we save at least 2, we lose 1. So they sat the son down, they told him, we have raised you alcohol-free, substance-free. So this house is an alcohol, substance-free house. You're welcome to live with us, and we love you, and we will support you as much as we can. But on condition that you don't take any substance. But if you choose to take the substance, we are sorry, we can no longer have you in this house. That was a tough decision. The boy said, I'm not quitting, so I'm leaving. He was in high school. He packed and he left. He left home. The parents decided not to look for him. The mother used to wake up to pray for him every day at 2 a.m. Every day she would wake up to pray for the son. Months or years went. They didn't know where the son was, but the mother was continually praying for him. One night, it's a true story. One night, she shared this testimony somewhere. One night, the mother woke up at 2 a.m. to pray for the son. As she was praying, her phone rang. The phone rang at 2 a.m. She's looking. This is a number, either the number of the son or a number she doesn't know. But anyway, the phone rang. She picked. The boy is the one on the other side. He says, Mom, I have lost my sight. I'm in such and such a street. Come for me right now. I've lost my sight. She woke up the husband. She said, let's go for our son. They went, they found he had lost his sight. He had taken a combination of substance. Think heroin, bangi, and something. There's a way they combined them on the street. So it had affected his optical nerve. So he had lost his sight. They rushed him to hospital. He was in hospital for some time. He gained his sight. He came back home. He completed school. He went to university. He's doing extremely well in his job now. And I remember the mother was saying the most difficult thing she had to do was to release her son. Because she realized, I'm going to lose all the 3. I have to let him go. And when she went, she knew the worst, because normally I ask parents, what's the worst that can happen? Can we start dealing with the worst? She knew that she may lose her son. And she said, I'm not God to determine who is living and who is dying. If that's the case, I surrender him. And the son is back home, went to school, doing well, quit all substances and all drugs, and is giving his testimony of victory. Another story, a family raised their children in the Lord. They had 2 girls. One of the girls decided to join LGBTQI plus, LGBTQ. There are people who are watching me who may get offended when I say that, but please get the context. So the girl decided to join, and she opened up and said, I have chosen, I'm gay, and I'm going to marry a woman. Very hard for the parents and very confusing, but they acted in a Christ-like way. They said, our daughter, we love you so much. Whatever you have chosen, your orientation you have chosen, that does not change the way we love, our love for you. We will love you, we will be there for you. If you get children, those are going to be our grandchildren. But if you're going to have a gay wedding, sorry, we will not attend. The way we have respected your choice, you have to respect our choice. If you choose that you're going to attend gay functions, we will not take you there. Don't ask us for money to facilitate. If you bring your women friends to the house, they can come and eat, but no getting into the bedroom or no gay activities in this house. But they can come and eat because we cannot control what friends you have. They released that child. After some time, the child came back to church. she got baptized, and is training to be a pastor. And the child renounced her ways. Of course, I'm cutting the story because there's a lot in between. But the point I'm saying is, I'm sharing the story of these parents as the heroes, because they got to a point where they said, you have chosen, we respect your choice, respect our choice. So as we have chosen this, you've chosen that, may the Lord watch. And they released, and they kept on praying. And when these children came back, they embraced them, took them back to school, paid the school fees, and the children have testimonies to give of parents who acted in Christ-like manner. Is that too much to ask of parents? Let me hear your feedback. Is that too much to ask of parents to love our children like the way the father loved the prodigal son? Can I get any reactions from the floor? Tough. It's a tough thing to do. Yeah, but the way to love the prodigal and to have our children. Okay, is there any that has come in? None? Okay, yes, good. I have an elder right there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harry, for the very nice teaching. I have a question. And this question could be borderline on the side of prodigal child, but stemming from a different place. We are looking at mixed families, for example. The other day,
Looking at?
Mixed families. Mixed families where the father or the mother is not the biological parent, all right? And for men, for example, in the experience that I've had and friends that I've seen, that those that, especially the boys when they grow, they become very disrespectful to the father figure who is there at times, especially during the teenage period, and they veer off. As a man, when this happens, I know you're not a man, of course, but you're very experienced to have seen stories and had. When this happens to you and this child veers off and loses it completely, your heart breaks because you feel like I was irresponsible to some extent, not to be godly enough to guide this child. But where do you draw the line so that we don't reach to this level of a prodigal son, number one? Number two, if it happens, the reality is this is not your biological child. And at times you'd want to say, come babake, atafutana babake. But now you also have to be like, I'm the father that is now existing. I mean, being human and being Christ-like is quite difficult, balancing the point there. So my question is, how do you forgive?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So first of all, when parents are coming together in a blended family, they need to have conversation, very clear conversation on the values and on the boundaries. So the adults in that family, first of all, they have a responsibility. So the bio parent of that child especially, and of course this other parent, the other bonus parent, I must say. So the adults must have conversation before and agree on the boundaries. Now, I want to say this, as the parent in that home, I know this because I'm raising, one of my children is not bio. So I know some of those consequences and some of those outcomes, and I've spoken to many people. So once you agree as a family that these are the boundaries, it applies to everybody across the board, because it is not meant to make anybody suffer. It's for their good. And as a parent in this case, you also must deal with your biases. Because if we find ourselves, sometimes we may find ourselves already concluding that the child is behaving like the other parent, I want to let you know that there's a kisi saying that goes something like, Indandongi, yasoki morogi, yasoki moibi. In other words, you cannot, how do you translate that? You cannot predict what you're going to give birth to. And those of us with older children, we know that. Sometimes I ask my children, who gave birth to you, like really? Who did? And I always tell them, if I gave birth to you in a busy hospital, I will truly say this child was exchanged. But again, I cannot say because my children are complete replica of the father and the grandparents. So I cannot say that. Even if I want to say I didn't give birth to you, but you look at my children and you met their grandparents, you will just take them to their home. So really, I know these are my children. But I mean, sometimes you pull your hair as a parent. Say, who gave birth to you? This is very strange. So I'm just saying this to say, whether the child is your bio parent or not, children reach an age in adolescence where they are testing boundaries. That is normal because they are individuating. They want to go very far from you as possible because they are finding their identity. So as parents, we must be clear. What are the value issues and what are the other issues that we call swing issues? Because we get lost in issues that are not of value. We are talking about dress. We are talking about hair. Then we are losing it. And children are taking drugs and they have put tattoos in places we can't see. But we are now concerned on the external things. So you must agree, what are the values that we are there? So once you agree as the values, every child in that house, they are subjected to the same rules and regulations, without fear, without favor. If you find yourself as the non-bio parent feeling like this is not my child, perhaps you need to address your own biases. Because even when you're raising children who are not yours, who are yours, as I said, there will be times when you doubt. So maybe you address your own biases and take this as children who don't even know what they are doing many times because they do not know how their choices affect the future. So for me, from my experience, because I'm raising one child who is not bio, the others are bio, I treat all of them the same. If this child does something, I always ask, what would I do if it was even my own child? This is what I would do. Sometimes you may find you begin to sympathize with the child. You begin to say, "Whoa, this child has no parents. Maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe people are going to think that I'm being unfair to this child." Put the biases aside. What I am doing is in the best interest of the child. That the same way I would have told my child, "Please, can you pack and leave?" Because one time I've locked one of my children outside. I said, yes, you come home at this time. The child comes late, and I've followed it in text. You come at this time, I'm sorry. I cannot open the door for a child. So I locked the door. I said, good night. And I slept until morning. And the child slept outside. So, because you can't come at that hour. So I would do that, even if it was any child. Even when my relative children come to my house, it's very clear wherever you are, our curfew is at this hour. You come at whatever time I lock. So I do not feel guilty that I've done that because they're not my bio child, because what I'm doing is in the best interest of this child. So look at them as a child who can act foolish, prodigal, and what they need is love. So you love them firmly because it's in their best interest, whatever you're doing. Thank you. But let me say, if you're not in agreement with the bio parent, it's going to be a big problem. That's why you must sit down, however much you love somebody, and they have a child. Take time. You even need to look for professional help, how you're going to parent, because it's not a simple matter. Children test your limits to the very end. Just that when they are yours, sometimes you wish you can even swallow them and forget that you ever got them. But thank God, most of the time is for a period. They eventually will come back and they'll be grateful that you remained as the solid, stable anchor in their life. So be solid, be focused, look at the bigger picture. Thank you. There is one more maybe.
This one is from online worshippers. One asks and says, one is raised as an Adventist and even baptized, strayed at some point, and they have decided to return. However, there is a tussle to get membership. You know that this is pastoral. How do you deal with rejection from the church? Then same person also asks, how do you deal with the church when the church seems not to care for a member who wants to come back? Then the last one, how do we allow a loved one to make a mistake even after communicating the dangers of the mistake? Should we help them with the recovery when they face the consequences?
Oh, good. So, yeah, that one, Pastor, you said, well, it's pastoral. But let me say, talk to the pastor. First of all, you must accept yourself. If you come to the church to receive love, you'll be very disappointed Because I've said many times, I read it somewhere, church is a hospital for sinners, and not all patients respond to treatment. That's why every hospital has a mortuary. And in most hospitals, there's a coffin maker outside there who has booming business. Because the hospital can have qualified doctors who have been trained and the healthcare workers. But we know there are people who eventually don't respond to treatment. So it will be presumptuous to come to church expecting to get love. Please, first, you go to the foot of the cross to get love. So Christ loves you unconditionally. Accept yourself. Sometimes it could be self-rejection. Accept yourself. Come back, follow the due process, because there's a clear due process. You cannot just rush in. You come in, you are redemptively guided, and you're rebaptized, and then you come to the church. Now, if you come to a church and maybe for whatever reason you're feeling like you're not accepted, my friend, there are many churches. See, there are many Adventist churches even around here. Maybe the church is too big. So if you're coming to Lavington, the church is so big, it's overwhelming. Even to maintain the members here, go to Kileleshwa, go to Westlands, go to Riruta. There are many churches. So do not just think that you must, for example, I'm just saying, come to Lavington. Go to many churches. If you go to many churches and you're feeling like you are rejected, look inward. You could be rejecting yourself. And when you are rejecting yourself, nobody can make you feel accepted. So you need to consider. Now, you have taught a loved one. They have been raised by the values. They have strayed and they are facing the consequences. Yes, it depends on what the consequences are. But I just want to say that you can support somebody, because I'm assuming if they're experiencing the consequences, they already, they are learning through the consequences. But I think it will depend. I will just need to understand what the consequences are. It will be guided. Your response will be guided by what the consequences are. If they are sick and they need treatment, of course they will get treatment. But resist the urge of telling them, you see, I told you. You don't listen. See? If you keep telling somebody that, you make it your problem. One time when one of my children went ahead to do something and it hurt them, I just said, they shared with me, I said, that must be tough. I see. If I also went ahead and did that, I would really be hurting right now. What do you plan to do now? I shifted the monkey back to them. That must be tough. What are you planning to do? They said, I don't know. I said, you may need to figure out. And once you figure out what to do, I'm here. You can let me know how to help you. And I said, bye. I disappeared. They later came to look for me. They said, I've thought about it, Mom, and this is what I want to do. I said, I'm here to support you. The child told me that what made them reflect is that I didn't react the way I would react ordinarily. Ordinarily, I would say, see, quote verses. What's your problem? Philosophy, and tell them this, and you don't listen. And, this is what I tell you. But this time, I had known better. I reacted different. I said, that must be tough. They said, you don't care that I'm suffering? I care, but there's nothing I can do about it. That's what happens. I can only imagine. That must be tough. And they said, we are not in a therapy session. I said, we are not, but I'm just saying, I feel for you. And I just left them there. They never went back to whatever they had done again. So you have to detach. Let me respond to one that came in yesterday before we end. Okay. Maybe let me take that, then I'll take the other.
Because this one has just texted me directly. I think the pastor didn't, or the pastor ignored. She's asking, how do we deal with domestic violence against our loved ones? And the last one, how do you help without intervening in the instances where the man is violent and narcissistic? That one.
So,
and the man is that one.
So I appreciate the fact that the person has asked that. So I'm going to answer it from the perspective of, it's our loved one, it's my loved one who is being abused, okay? Let me tell you, many people who are forcefully removed from domestically violent environments, they go back. Is that not so? They go back and you become the enemy. Let me tell you, in every abusive relationship, it's a relationship. It's a dynamic. You will be saying, this is the abuser, this is the victim. That victim is gaining something from that abuse. This is not about victim blaming or shaming. There is a reason as to why, number one, they got into that abuse. Number two, there's a reason as to why they tolerate that abuse. It may be that their self-esteem is so crushed. It may be that they are over-dependent on their abuser to get their needs met. They love the control, but it gets to that. So I want you to be consciously aware that your loved one may be the victim, but it's a dance. There's a dance being maintained because the abuser is meeting a need in the victim, okay? Once you know that, you're going to realize it's not your problem, it's their problem, even if it's your child. When you're talking to them, you're focusing on empowering the victim so that they can decide what they want to do. Some people come to me and they pay for a session and they want to sit for 1 hour to talk about the abuser. Akafanya. Okay. Thank you. This working? Think they have gone off? It's not work. Is it working? Oh, good. So the victim wants to sit down and talk about the abuser for 1 hour. Therein you realize the victim is obsessed with the abuser. They have relinquished their power. They have given their power to the abuser. And the abuser is controlling their life. So empowering them is to make them focus inward. What is this that makes you stay? So for me, when they say, Akanifanya, they did this, they did that, I say, that is so sad they did all that. Help me understand. What made you feel you deserve to be beaten? What made you there the following day and they kept on doing this? So whatever sort of help need to focus on the victim, empowering the victim so that they can take their power back, to say no, to put a boundary, and to live. You can encourage somebody to live if you see that their life is in danger, but you're just saving their life. It must go beyond there to empower them, because a lot of victims have lost all their self-worth, that they cannot see their lives outside of the perpetrator, and they will eventually go back. My family tried to rescue a loved one 7 times from domestic violence. Eventually, they went back the 7th time and contracted HIV, the 7th time. And the domestic violence was so bad, I can't even describe it here. So they were left with HIV and the body completely shattered and broken. So now after they have contracted HIV, they said now there is no reason to go back because already I have HIV. The husband died, the relative died of cervical cancer related to HIV and left the children. And the family sat down and talked, everybody just gave up. So I'm trying to say that there's a hold. Most of the time, people in domestic violence, they're in a trauma bond. A trauma bond is like a drug addiction. So you can rush in and quickly remove them from the perpetrator and keep them safe. I'm telling you, they will run away. My relative used to be picked from the shamba. She has come, she's gone to hospital, she's okay. She has gone to the shamba. The man comes to the shamba, picks her. You're waiting for her. She even leaves her child with you. You're waiting for her in the evening. She's not coming. He looks for her in the market. She went to the market. You're waiting for food. She disappeared. After a short time, she comes again, broken and crawling. When you sit them down to talk, she says, us guys love each other. You people are the ones who are trying to separate us. We love each other. And you're looking at someone who has no teeth and the jaw is broken and they stay. It is sad. Sometimes you watch your family member going down, dying. But what I want you to realize is that this is a relationship. There's a dance. There's a dynamic playing. And the most domestic violence victims, what they need is to be empowered. They will keep telling you, I'm staying for the children. The last child leaves home and you say, so why are you staying? They'll say, you don't understand these things. Of course we don't. So you need to empower them so that they can make the decision, okay? Yeah, so you need to step aside and separate yourself, even if it means referring them for professional help, especially if you're emotionally invested. And also realize you can remove them from one abuser, they will get another one. That is the point, because when somebody is a victim, they will keep getting perpetrators. So you will remove them. You say that person was bad. You come, you go to church, be baptized, oga urudi soko, get another person. They will get an abuse until number 5. As long as they have not worked on themselves by God's grace to desist from being a victim. Because a victim, I said, attracts abusers. I hope that. So let me just answer the last one and end. I don't know how much time we have. Can I be guided? You want, maybe we take that one only? Yeah.
Okay, you have talked about maybe when you are doing the home Sabbath at your church, then you ask them question, maybe the child and who are proud to be Adventist. You came to find out he's only one who raised a hand. Like, what is the problem? Because the foundation is the key for each and everything that grows strong. What could be the problem? Because when the child are growing up, you find they're very strong, they're mainly in church, but when it reaches at youth stage, you find that is where now the challenges began. How do you handle that? And the second question is, how do you initiate the process of reconciliation in case you're wounded or self-inflicted wounds and other wounds? How do you initiate reconciliation? Thank you.
First of all, I'm asking, are they really strong? That's what we think. That's what we are thinking, that they are strong.
Yeah.
Because the Bible verse they are reciting, who has taught them? It's us. You have taught them.
Yeah.
The Pathfinder Pledge, you have taught them. So really, I said the other time, I said between the ages of 0 to 13, a child does not fully understand the concept of God. So they experience God the way they experience their parents. If the parent is authoritarian, they will experience God as being authoritarian. And because of fear, they are going to be in church and do everything right, religious practices. What we see a lot here is religion. We don't see much of spirituality. When it's children, we are seeing religion, really. So what, as parents, one of the things that we need to do is help our children find God for themselves. Help our children find God for themselves. That along the way you are asking them, what does God mean to you? And some of the resources we have in our Grace Link, if we do our Bible studies with our children, using the kindergarten, the PowerPoint lesson and everything, there's a way in which it helps the child to experience God. And also to understand that if our child, for example, is saying, I don't feel like going to church today, you don't say, in this house, you must go to church. They will come for you because of you. It is to ask, let me understand what makes you not want to go to church. You can use that as a teachable moment so that you get to understand. So the question then I will throw to us as parents, how much of what our children are embracing is their religious value? How much of it? How much of it? How much of it makes sense to them? I listened on Sabbath what some of our children were saying. I wanted to bring it to attention. And the children were eloquent and fantastic. Let me just draw attention to one of the things the children said. The children said something like, not the exact, but it was something like this, that maybe your friends could be telling you to do things which are not accepted in the Adventist church. Was there something like that? Some things like tattoos which are not accepted in the Adventist church. Do you see a problem with that statement? So it is because you're not putting a tattoo because it's not accepted in the Adventist church. That faith does not save anybody. That I'm not putting on this because it's not accepted in the Adventist church. When my son wanted to dye his hair and put a tattoo, I didn't talk about the Adventist faith. I said, have you considered that those dyes that are used in the stuff that makes tattoo and for dyeing the hair have heavy metals? And those heavy metals are going to affect your vital organs. Have you considered? And this child said, oh, is that so? Because I know this child cares about his health, he loves himself, and he wants to live long. So I never quoted the Bible anywhere because I know we have raised this child in the church, but again, I know that everything that God says we shouldn't do, it's for our good. So I said, consider that tattoos are permanent, and those heavy metals are going to affect your vital organs. That's why somebody who has tattooed cannot donate blood and should not ideally breastfeed because of the heavy metals. So you will tattoo, and the heavy metals will be in your system, and later on you may feel different about that tattoo. Will you be proud that you did it? You can dye your hair, it looks cute, but it has heavy metals. And I sent links how the dyes are related to Alzheimer's and what have you. And this child said, oh, okay. So when I talk alcohol and drugs, I don't talk so much about the church says what, because I know everything God says is for our good. When I talk about them not engaging in sex, I don't say, oh, you will break the commandments. They know. But I'm just saying, have you considered the consequences of early sex? Do you really want to put yourself in that position with another person? Then you realize that can transform somebody. Yeah? So let's consider, even as parents, the way we train our children by saying the church says, the church says. Many children who are raised as pathfinders saying the church says no jewelry, they now come to church with earrings. They do. They come with earrings because they said, it doesn't make sense to me. After all, the Israelites had jewelry and everything. But let's just ask, what makes you think that you need to add something to your natural beauty? You see? Those metals that will be circulating in your system, is that what you want for yourself? You know, something like that. And then you talked about what? Reconciliation? What did you say?
How do you initiate the process of reconciliation? Maybe you are wounded or you're affected in the relationship.
Okay, let me just say in brief, maybe I can talk more about it tomorrow. So the process of reconciliation is that first of all, you must acknowledge that you are wounded. That's where it begins. Number 2, you must seek your own healing. Because if you begin reconciling, remember these people have not changed. So if you proceed with reconciling before healing, forgiving, and conditionally, you're going to get triggered. So you must acknowledge, then you must seek healing. And how do you heal? You unconditionally forgive the people that hurt you. You forgive them with no expectation, whether they change or not. You also forgive yourself because there are certain wrong things that you may have done as a result of your woundedness. Some people have sent messages to me after the presentation yesterday. They have said that because of the sexual abuse, they have found themselves sexualizing everybody. Some have gotten into masturbation, pornography. Some are engaging in sex because of what had happened to them. So the thing is, you must forgive yourself because you've also made wrong choices by virtue of the fact that you are wounded. So once you're in a stable place, you may consider reconciliation with the other person, but it's not guaranteed. Because some people you may want to reconcile, but they are too dangerous. The family member that sexually abused me, I will not reconcile with them because they are not safe. And if they die before me, sorry, I don't think I will attend their funeral. But I'm praying for them. I've forgiven them. I pray that the Lord bless them, give them a long life. But I will not attend their funeral. And I cannot meet with them because I feel very triggered and I don't feel safe with them because they have not changed, because they had abused many other children. So they have not changed. So it's not a must that you reconcile with the other person because forgiveness is not equals to reconciliation. It's not equals to trust. It's not equals to not seeking justice. You can fully and completely forgive somebody and yet pursue justice and have them imprisoned and yet not be reconciled with them because they will hurt you again and never trust them again because some people cannot be trusted. But you can forgive them completely. Finally, as I end, I know we have gone past our time. Somebody asked yesterday about phones. I will be brief. This is the thing. I'm looking at it in two ways. Why do you want to check your partner's phone? Is it because you have trust issues? Because there are people who have trust issues, they want to keep checking somebody's phone. Have they given you a reason to doubt? You know, sometimes you can receive a message from committee that is written something like, you have stolen somebody's wife, and your partner will see that message and react. One time I had somebody who was supplying honey to me. I marketed him at my workplace and he would bring honey to us. And I had saved him, let's say he was called John. I had saved him John Honey because I forget. I didn't think about it at the time. I'm going somewhere. So I save people by virtue of what they are doing because, I have many Johns. So I saved, he's not called John. I'm giving us an example. I wrote John Honey. And because I really supported him a lot, he sold honey he provided for his family, was a godly young man in church. He wrote me a message one time, the end of the year. He said, I thank God for the day I met you. I thank God for the day I met you. You have truly transformed my life. I pray for you every day. My life will never be the same again. This year has been bright because of you. I mean, I understood where he was coming from. He really appreciated because he was a young man trying to provide for his family. And I marketed honey widely. I mean, he's a young man who I'm like a mother figure to him. I read that message. I said, thank you so much. So one time something came to my mind because I don't have a password on my phone. And my phone is open to my husband and my children and his as well. So I said, if my husband saw this message and I've saved him as Dan Honey, what will he think at the moment? Then I shared with my husband. He told me, what you do, save as Dan Asali. Because he told me, you know what may happen? One time you may be in an emergency, then people will pick your phone. Then they will check Honey. They see Dan Honey because my husband have saved him by his name for safety reasons. So they will see Dan Honey and call him thinking he's your husband. Do you understand? So I shared that with my husband. So I said if my husband was an insecure person who checks my phone, he sees such a message and I've saved Dan Honey, he can end a marriage on nothing. So I'm saying if you have trust issues that make you check your husband's phone, please, or your wife's phone, I want to say, please heal from your trust issues. I know marriages that have been broken because of that. If you have a reason to suspect your partner, you don't even need to check the phone. My friend, pray. I have people who have sent a message that they were meant to send to their partner. They were meant to send to their affair partner. They have sent to the spouse. I am telling you, just pray. The evidence is going to come. You don't need to look for it. Finally, somebody I knew, the husband used to send to the mother's worker money every month. The mother's worker, they had not talked about it. So every month he used to send, let's say, 5,000 to this lady. So the wife used to spy on the man's phone, check M-Pesa messages. She consistently saw a message of this lady, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. Her brain went on spiral. She confirmed this man has another wife in the village who is sending money. He called her and insulted her properly. And this lady is saying, Sielewi ni nini. Who are you? She says, me, I'm so and so. I work at such and such a person's place. I'm telling you, by this time, this couple had not been intimate for months. Because the wife had concluded, you have a wife in the village with kids, don't touch me. And she did not tell him why. So the husband is wondering. And she's like putting a barrier in the bed. Don't come near. You may even be HIV positive. I don't know. So by the time they talked. She had to repent with tears. After calling somebody and insulting a poor woman in the village who is employed and works. So please, I just want to say, if you have any doubt, pray, sit down and talk about it if you have evidence. But desist from checking somebody's phone. It may be a sign of trust issues. But if you see somebody trying to hide and they are putting passwords, hata zile za shadow. You know, there are people who the password is their shadow. If you see somebody putting passwords and what have you, then you may have a reason to doubt, and there's a way to find out. If you are a genuine, honest person, somebody cannot lie to you for long. If you are genuine, honest, and straightforward, they cannot lie to you for long. The evidence is just going to come to you. Yeah. Thank you so much. May God bless you.